video, I'm going to give you the end of season checklist that you can use, and it's what I use every year to make sure I'm caught up to speed with everything in the woods. So I want to come up with these checklist videos about every month, and just kind of like a thing to do in the deer woods every month, and there's always something to do. And so right now we have 10 inches of snow on the ground, and in some places, like right back here, we have snow drifts up to 3 feet, and some are 4 feet. And so I love coming out here in the snow. You can see where the deer are, and you can see especially how the bedding is. And right here beside me, I have this is the bedding area where I grass, and it's matted down right now, but next year it'll be 6 feet tall, and close to 6 feet tall, and we can use that for deer bedding right in here. And so you can see how well it's held up right now. It might look a little down right here, and it is pretty much everywhere, but it's only 4 feet high, and with a foot of snow on the ground, that's about what it should look like. So next year it'll be even taller, and we're going to be mowing it in May, and I'll probably do a video on that, and that'll be one of the checklists for May. So what I wanted to give you in this video is the end of season checklist. This is what I do every year after the season over, and the first thing that I prioritize on my checklist is to go out and scout. And so now with scouting, you don't have the worry of spooking deer because you're not trying to hold them on your land right now. But there is something that I will say. I will be out of here during the month of March because I want to be able to find shed antlers. So that's the only reason why I would not be in the woods during March. But other than that, January and February, I am in the woods as much as possible, and I'm scouting out, putting in new designs like switchgrass and stuff like that to do later this year. And so we're going to do all kinds of stuff this year, and I can't wait to share that with you. But right now, the end of season checklist number 1 is making sure you're going out and scouting, checking trail cameras, checking deer runs, looking where they're at, so that way you can pinpoint where they're at during the winter, and that can help you tremendously during the next season. And so that's what I've been doing here, and we have a lot of snow, and it pays to get out in the snow and see exactly where the deer tracks are at and how you can find them during the late season. And so number 2 on the checklist is putting gear up. And I know, like, just making sure everything's organized. I put wax on my bow after the season because hunting in the rain and stuff like that. So making sure all your gear is set up and ready for the next season. It's what I do every year after the season. And then number 3 is taking down stands. And now I haven't taken down stands yet, but once the snow clears, I'm going to be taking down stands. And it might be a little early in the year for that, but it doesn't matter how early you take down your stands. I'd rather get them out early than leave them up till April and May. I know a lot of people who leave their stands up till April and May. And if you can avoid weather like this, I wanted to get out and get them out before the weather came, but I just wasn't able to. If you can avoid weather like this, then there won't be as much wear and tear on your stands. And so that really helps, especially when the cold hits and then the warm hits. That'll really get to your stands too. So being able to get your stands out and make sure they're in a place where the weather can't get to them, that's something that I'm going to be doing here pretty soon, maybe next week, is getting those stands out. And so that's number 3 on the checklist, is getting stands out. And number 4 on the checklist is going out and trimming deer runs, even future shooting lanes, because that'll really help you without all the green vegetation everywhere. Getting those that stuff cut right now can really help you be able to get all that stuff out so the deer can walk better. Not saying you need to clear a bunch out, because they still need cover, but clearing some out so that way they have ease walking through, and so you can make you can make them go where you want them on the trail. They don't always follow the script like they're supposed to or how you want them to, but that's just one thing that you can do to try to make sure that you can get them within bow range or within range of any weapon during hunting season. And so, and then kind of adding to that is, if you know how to do hinge cuts, if you are going to do hinge cuts, this is the best time to get out in the snow, in the cold, and work on those hinge cuts and do them right now. Because of all the green vegetation, it's not out here. You can get in here really easily and cut whatever you need to make sure that you have adequate cover for the deer. And then, kind of on a side note about adequate cover, is during the winter you can see if you have adequate cover or not. Now, as you can see, we do not have adequate cover, and I'm working on that, prioritizing that more than food plots or anything, is making sure deer have cover. Food plots complement cover. Cover does not complement food plots or fields. Deer need cover more than they need anything else. And so food plots are a great attraction. And even if you don't have cover and you have food plots, that's still a huge attraction to bring deer onto your land. But if you combine both of those and make sure you have more cover than you do food, that's a really good thing. And another thing is, I was going to say, back here we have canopies, and that's kind of like a hinge cut, but they're not real hinge cuts. But the trees are leaning over, the limbs are leaning over, and they're falling down, and the deer can walk right underneath them and bed underneath them. So right over here, right next to my right next to my artificial bedding area that I made, there's a natural one right next to it that we can use. So that way there's even more bedding for more deer. This whole fourth of an acre would probably hold 3 to 4 deer to cover. And because deer need space, especially bucks and does, you need lots of space between where does bed and where bucks bed. I have a 500-yard spacing between where this is the doe bedding area and the buck bedding area. And I haven't put any habitat improvements in the buck bedding area, and you would think that that's the one that you want to prioritize first. But that's not the case. So you want to make sure you have does. If you do not have adequate doe bedding, then you're not going to have adequate buck bedding. So you have to have doe bedding before you have bucks, because you need those does on here before you have bucks. And so canopies, hinge cuts, trimming travel corridors, trimming shooting lanes even, making sure that you can actually get a stand in there next season, or trimming shooting lanes on your stands that you have up right now to use if you know you're going to use them next season. But stand rotations are a really good thing. I think that's mostly it for the January or February checklist, actually, end of season checklist. And that's mostly what I'm doing out here, but my main thing is I'm going to be scouting everywhere through this whole spot. And not just even that, scouting, why did that buck bed in the specific spot that I saw him bed? Why did that specific buck come by my such and such camera? Why was I able to shoot that buck in the food plot this year? Why did he come to the food plot? All those things come into play, and that can really help you narrow down on deer movements for next year and years to come to make sure you have good success. And so I was very, God blessed me a lot this year being able to harvest my biggest buck to date, and he's bigger than anything that I think I've ever seen on this property. And I have had bigger bucks on trail cameras, but I'm still very fortunate and blessed to be able to have shot that buck. And I love just being out here in God's creation and seeing all of what He's made. It's really awesome, and you can just be out here for hours on end and you still won't get enough of it. So it's really cool to be out here in the snow and what God's created and see all of what He's done. making all this. And so I love being out here doing all this stuff, but just making sure those checklists, you get all those done in February, and hopefully I remember and put one out in March. And I'll put one out in March, and there's going to be shed hunting, or getting sheds is going to be one of March's one of March's checklists. But another checklist, a bonus checklist, is staying out of the woods in March. And you need to stay out of the woods in March so that way you're not pushing or bumping bucks off, so that way you can find their sheds this season. So I hope that helps, and we're going to be out here a lot more working on all this, and I'm going to be making sure that I get those checklists done every year and every month.